Good evening, everybody. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We are delighted to be here tonight with State Representative Art Cannon and Michelle Bennett, who is an activist and longtime friend of Charis. So this is wonderful to get to be here with you in this capacity, Michelle. We're here to celebrate Park's new book. And, you know, we have known Park. Park was our representative in Little 5 Points. And we were very honored by getting to vote for her and, you know, be one of your constituents. And even though we're traitorous and moved over to Decatur, and so you're no longer representing us, we still feel that you are representing us in all of the ways that you show up for us more globally in the state house. So when we heard you writing this book, we were really, really excited because people ask us all the time at Charis, you know, how do I get more involved at a local level? If I want to affect change, but I feel burnt out or sad about the state of politics, what do I do? Mm-hmm. And so for folks who are watching at home tonight, just, you know, trust that tonight is going to be just a little taste of that. And then if you want more, we encourage you to get Park's book. Really quickly, if you don't know State Representative Park Cannon, she serves the citizens of Georgia's House District 58, which includes a bunch of different Atlanta neighborhoods: Virginia Highland, Midtown, Downtown, the Old Fourth Ward, Cabbagetown, Reynoldstown, Oakland City, Grant Park, Capitol View Manor, Summerhill, Mechanicsville, Peoplestown, Pittsburgh, Venetian Hills, Fort McPherson, Adams Park, Betmar, La Villa, Campbellton Road, Pomona Park, and sections of numerous others. So it is a giant part of what we call Atlanta, right? Like when you think about Atlanta, most of it is in Parks District, which is awesome.
I think she got tired just hearing all that listed.
Me tired. She currently serves as the secretary to the Georgia House Democratic Caucus and is assigned to the Insurance, Small Business Development, Human Relations and Aging, Code Revision, and Ethics Committees. And her legislative efforts focus on reproductive justice issues such as access to quality healthcare, housing, and education. Representative Cannon seeks to stop the erosion of affordability for basic needs, which she believes are the foundations of social stability. She also devotes her legislative work to protecting Georgia's most vulnerable citizens, including women and children, the elderly, and the LGBTQ+ community. Park has done so many other amazing things in her time in office, but we're going to get into those, so I'm not going to read her entire bio, but I do want to introduce Michelle Bennett. Michelle has been involved in education for more than 20 years. She's worked in schools in Washington, D.C. and Atlanta, and she now currently works as a lobbyist here in Georgia and spends her free time volunteering as block captain for DeKalb Democrats, as a clinic escort with Feminist Women's Health Center, and as a poll worker for DeKalb County. So we were delighted for Michelle to be an interviewer tonight, since she has a long relationship with Representative Cannon and, of course, with DeKalb County and the city of Atlanta. So delighted to have you both here. I want to encourage folks watching at home, if you would like to ask questions, click this Ask a Question box at the bottom of your screen. If you're on a phone or something and you would like to just put your question in the chat, I'll move it over. As a gentle reminder, Charis Circle is a 501c3 nonprofit, and so we are prohibited from encouraging anyone to vote for any specific candidate or to talk about who anyone might be voting for. This is a nonpartisan conversation. Of course, we all have our own values and views. I'm sure no one would be surprised at where our values and views might be, but we'll not be endorsing anyone in any of tomorrow's races. But we do look forward to having a robust conversation this evening. So I'm going to get out of the way. Thank y'all both so much for being here. It is truly an honor.
Oh, love you. Thank you so much. Hey, Mom. Hey, your book. It's here.
It's here. And I've got Congress here, and I've got my pen for signing, and I've got, you know, my tea because it's been a long day. Vote, Run, Lead gave me this cup. Let's talk.
Let's do it. Let's talk. So the book, I love the book. You know what I liked about the book? It's so easy to read. It's truly a guidebook, you know?
Yeah, that's the goal. It's a guide.
it makes it seem like, yes, you can do this, right? And I love all the affirmations that you put in here. And I had tagged a few, like I'm qualified to run. I think
Yes.
that can be hard for people to get past that.
Yes.
And that's on page 147. And then on 245, your affirmation, I can mature in the role. And I think that's a big leap to go from not serving to serving. You know? So I think that that's important for people to remember that affirmation, that you can grow into the role.
Yeah.
And you don't have to come with every single skill set, right?
Nope.
Yeah. And then the other affirmation that I liked was page 253. I compare myself to myself.
Yes, me to me.
That one's really good. That was my favorite one. That, you know, I think that one can be tough for people. And how do you think like people can work through that and get past that and just look at themselves and what they can do and not look at other people that already have these positions and think, well, I'm not that person, so I can't run, or I'm not as qualified as this person.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, when I think about my role as a legislator versus my role as a candidate, or my role as an elected official, or as someone who is on a committee member, my role as secretary, there's so many different roles that as you run for office and when you become elected that you hold. So I've had to think through all those things and realize that the myself I'm holding myself to is someone who makes an impact. Maybe every year I don't technically sign a bill with the governor, but I do make an impact in some way. So I hope that this book brings an opportunity for people to judge themselves against themselves and take that leap to run for office.
I thought that was the best affirmation. And I think that that's really what holds a lot of people back from running, because I think you can find the money, right? There's a lot of local orgs, and people that should be running are not running, to be honest. And the people that should not be running are running. So I think that this book kind of paints such a great guidebook for people. Like you can do
you.
Right?
Yeah, like you said about the money part. I mean, I write a whole, part in this about fundraising and about call time. And I remind people that when you are raising money for a campaign, this is not paying your light bill and paying for food for your cute puppies. This is for yard signs, and this is for direct mail to voters. And so even though it might feel difficult to do call time, cold call people, introduce yourself, and ask for resources for your campaign, that's what you're supposed to do as an elected official. Your role as an elected official is to allocate money, to request resources. So I say get it in on the front end. Learn how to be steadfast in your ask as a candidate.
Right. And I'd even, on page 57, I have that for your call time. And I put a note on there that only part could make call time and fundraising fun and accessible. Because the chapter is like, yeah, you can totally do this. It's totally easy. But wouldn't you say, like, because you had another affirmation in there about being true to yourself. So wouldn't you say if you control who you call, right, then you can control how you legislate once you get in there, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm not calling, Monsanto and asking them if they'll max me out a check from their package. Instead, I'm talking to local labor unions, folks who are plumbers, folks who are painters in the city of Atlanta who might not make a livable wage unless they were unionized. And so maybe the donations are smaller. I'm a very grassroots donation kind of gal. But when you see all of the support that mounts for you, and you know that you can go and you can lead without your hands being tied or you feeling like you owe somebody a favor, it's a really transparent way to be an elected official.
Right. And then, what was the other? So let me ask you this. So did you, when you started out thinking about running, did you think, okay, I'm going to run? Or did you go through the path of, I'm going to ask people around me, should I run? Like,
So
did you get the support first and then make the decision, or vice versa?
honestly, a lot of people did recommend to me over the years, like, wow, are you going to run for office one day? Like, what are you doing? I have photos and videos of me from being a kid in South Georgia where I grew up. And I was doing the morning news. And, you know, it just so happened that they would only let me on the morning news during Black History Month. But I have those kind of like young videos of me looking like I'm trying to talk about something really important, but being a young person. So I really remember like hearing people say it over the years, but I promise you, I never thought it was possible until I had reached certain statuses. I felt like I had to have my first job at the clinic, and then I had to go back to school and become a lawyer, and then understand the law from a schooling perspective, then maybe have a career, then retire, then maybe I could run for office. And that's simply not how it happened. I was virtually and kind of, you know, halfway interning with my state legislator at that time, Simone Bell. And I write about her in this book. And I was talking about how I would call her, I would email her, whether there were things that were really good or things that were terrible that were happening. And I would just give her bumps of courage, you know, encouragement, and building a rapport with my legislators. So when she had to resign and when she needed to move on, I was one of the people that she called. And I mean, I tell this story all the time. I was at Georgia Equality, which is one of our local LGBTQ nonprofits that spans the entire state of Georgia. And if you've ever been to Georgia Equality's office, you know that there's a train stop that's like up the street. And it's a little bit of a walk, but it's not a lot. But if you are late, then you might want to run, and then you have to go up some stairs, you have to pay, and you have to go up more stairs. So I was late and I was running, and I made it to my train, and the doors opened and my phone rang. And it was like State Representative Simone Bell. So I stepped off the train, I'm like sweating, and she was like, I really need to talk to you. You know, I'm considering resigning my seat, and I wanted to see if you would consider running for office. I had no clue that a sweaty day on MARTA was going to be the day I decided to run for office after
but that's
all
how it happened. Yeah, that's how it happened, though. But you built up that rapport with her, and she trusted you enough to call you to fill that seat. Yeah. So we've got two people with questions, if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Destiny, she says, thanks for talking to us. And she wants to know, how do you think your college education or things you've been involved with in college help prepare you for this? And also, do you think as college students, we could get more involved now?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. So I will always remember the day that I was in one of my feminist courses. I did a minor in women and gender studies. And I remember the day that I heard the term queer. I remember unpacking language about queer feminist ideology and queer lived experience and queer families. And for the first time, it clicked. I felt like this is a part of me, and this is an identity that I would be proud to stand on some Capitol steps one day and say, never knowing that I would run in 2016 and become the first openly queer state legislator in the United States. And I don't say that fact to, you know, tap on my shoulder. I say that because I had no clue that me making the decision to run for office openly queer, and not to just say like, oh yeah, I'm a part of the LGBTQ community, I'm a lesbian maybe or something, but to really say, so what if people don't know what queer means yet? This is the reason why queer people don't run for office, because we have all of these stigmatizing issues in front of us where people say, oh, how are you going to knock doors and your male piece says that you're queer? Well, I'm a member of church, Dr. King's church. You know, I'm a student. You know, I'm a member of the affordable housing communities. All of these other things, I was able to see that as a college student, you know, me grabbing the term queer, it put power back in my body. And as a young person from Georgia with low economic means, who's lived through homelessness in college, whose family had a lot of domestic violence going on, I really learned that just holding your own experience and not being afraid of it can be so powerful, because others will believe in that too. So I am always recommending that young people, folks who are in college or of that age, run for office for 2 reasons. My first reason is a question. How different would it be if you graduated from high school and ran for school board? Well, it would be different because you had just been in that high school that didn't give you sex ed. You would have been in that high school that had really gender conforming uniform policies. Or maybe you were in the middle of the transgender bathroom conversations that were hurting families left and right. Well, if you were a school board member, you could impact those policies. And for those people, you can run. 19, 20, 21. We have a young...
So Royce is running, right? Royce.
Yeah, we have all kinds of young people around the country who are running. And so my first reason for young people running is because of that question. How different would it be? But my second reason is really because a lot of this, it does not pay that much. And it really needs people who are willing to put in more than what they get out of it. I say that because as young people or people coming out of academic experiences, we know that we're willing to work hard in an internship because it'll pay off later. And we're not looking to pad our pockets by finding wealthy donors. We would rather be in an Instagram DM helping someone find their voter registration so that they can go to the polls tomorrow. I just really am thankful for, you lifting up this question that was just asked to us about how do young people get involved, and like, how did my college experience really help with that?
Yeah. Okay. That's great. So Tasha has a question. We talked about a little bit, but she wants to know, how do you deal with imposter syndrome when you know you're called to serve?
Absolutely.
That's very, I mean, for me, I'll say the first time I went to the Capitol, I was totally intimidated, absolutely intimidated. But I met Park, I met people from other local orgs that make you feel welcomed. And I mean, you just have to find your people and just stay with them, right?
Yeah,
and they'll lift you up.
I would agree, because, the issues that I put on my platform when I ran for office, right? They were not very vague. They were very specific. I am here to protect abortion access.
Right.
I want to see energy crises averted in my lifetime. I want to make sure that those living with their abusers can break their leases without having to pay a fine. And so when I started running for office, people would start to ask me like, well, what data and what facts and how do you have all this information and how are you going to pass a bill given your chamber's political makeup? So I literally wrote this book with 120 days of affirmations that get at imposter syndrome. On page 227, for example, this is day 70 in our affirmation series. I say, I am doing the best that I can, and really meaning it. You can't do more than the system is going to allow. I know that on March 25th, the day that I was unlawfully arrested, I know I had done everything I could do. And all I wanted to do after have worked all day, we had been at the Capitol since 8 o'clock that morning, was go home and see Congress. And
I just saw you that morning.
Yes.
It went left very quickly.
Oh my God. And so, I write affirmations like, I am suited for this position. And I mean that in the fashion way. Like, I literally have to suit up to go to the Capitol. I'm not going to talk about some of the more scary things that I have to wear when I go to the Capitol, or how I have to really protect my body to be able to go there. But I want to talk about some of the spiritual things that I do. I make sure to ground myself. I put my bare feet on the ground, or I literally hug a tree before I go to the Capitol to get some of that energy. I make sure that I have Epsom salt and that I can soak off what has happened to me in the day when I get home. And all day in between, if you look at me on the floor, you might see me spraying things around me. I have a cadre of essential oils that I always have with me. So if we're debating a controversial bill, I might spray something so that I don't get triggered. Or if someone comes near me who I know their presence is terrible, I literally have an oil that my therapist made me that says back the blank off. And so in the moment when all of these things are happening, and I'm still the youngest member, even though I'm 30, I've been the youngest member since I was 24. And so some people see me as like the baby of the house or the baby of the caucus, meaning they have really started to understand me as a person, to see me as their niece, to understand that I'm fighting for a better future in voting rights. Whereas others see me as like some other negative terms that they don't want to associate with. I have to really stand strong against those things. So I suit up when I go to the Capitol for sure.
And that's one of your affirmations, right? It was something about realizing like everyone's not going to respond to your message and you can't listen to them, right? Yeah. Everyone's not going to like you and you just got to keep it moving forward, right?
Oh my gosh, there's so many times that I've had to respond with like kind of Southern twang humor. And so, sometimes, they'll say to me like, oh girl, I didn't even realize you were as a legislator. I didn't realize you was old enough to be here. And I'll have to say to them, oh my gosh, you must have been here when they wrote that law. How don't you remember? How old are you again? To really turn ageism on its face. Right. Unfortunately, we've experienced some more terrible things down there, a lot of sexism. This year, a legislator straight up went in the well and made a comment about Cardi B's body. And
I remember
debating, he remembers it too. And we were debating a bill that had nothing to do with that. And so we had to, as legislators, female legislators, the Women's Caucus, do a release against that legislator. And we had to put in an ethics complaint. I do serve on the ethics committee. So if there are things that members do that are intense, we have a panel that reviews all those things. And I take my roles very seriously. I want to make sure that legislators have space to be themselves and to really represent their communities of different backgrounds. Like, we just got our first German immigrant legislator 2 years ago. We just got
Angelica, right?
Angelica.
She's great.
Yeah, we just got our first Latina elected official 4 years ago, Brenda Lopez.
Right.
You would think the state of Georgia has never had more diverse elected officials than Black and white. I'm here to tell you, literally no. We just got our first Jamaican immigrant elected 2 years ago as well. And so there's so many other identities that are just not represented, folks who just are there to represent. And if I don't show up in my full space of wearing a rainbow mask or showing up for the community of LGBTQ folks, then how can Donna go in the well and say big up and really bring in the Jamaican community without feeling ostracized? I think there's so much more work to do, which is why when we go back into session in 2 days on Wednesday, there's a lot that really needs to be unpacked before these maps get redrawn.
Yeah. So, the thing I like about you as a legislator, and I love the youth, right, that run, because they see, I feel like some of the older legislators or legislators that come from more of a privileged background see wealth as this merit, but not not bad luck for being not wealthy, right? And they see not being wealthy or being, lower income as just a bad character flaw. And I think when we elect younger people, maybe that went right after school, like you were suggesting, they tend to support people that are struggling and they don't punish them. And I feel like some of the older legislators are out to punish people for the position and their birthright, right? What they were been born into. So that's what I like about you. You don't see it as a character flaw. You see it as something that we need to fix in Atlanta. We need to fix in Georgia, right? The wealth inequality.
Yeah, I'm sick of the punitive opportunities that people of color, folks with low means, are always given. It's like, well, you can have access to food, but you have to sign a paper that says that you will never have another partner in the home with you. Right. I mean, these are the policies that when we see them come through our state agencies, we need a strong legislator to say, I don't mind that I'm going to be the one dissenting vote. I'm so proud to be a dissenting vote whenever I am. Like, I remember the time that they were passing a license plate bill. And the license...
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, the license plate was in support of the police. And it ultimately now says, back the blue.
Right.
And this was, you know, during the time in which we had a different president, and it was very clear what back the blue really meant. It was a part of hate speech that goes on vehicles. So when you see people who are being run off of roads, old history showing itself again, when you're seeing people's big pickup trucks with big Confederate flags flying out the back, a back the blue license plate, all of these other hate speech symbols on there, the state is now allowing this. And the way that they did it was that they said that the money would go to surviving spouses of those who had fallen in the line of duty, which I am not here to be punitive to spouses, but I am here to hold people accountable for the ways that policing has not backed so many communities. I mean, I remember going home that day and just crying. And it wasn't because I'm too young to deal with all of this or not mature enough. I've always been mature for my age. But it was because I knew that it was going to propel forward hate in my home state. I was not afraid to be that dissenting vote, and I'll never forget that day.
I remember you speaking up. But you know what you noticed about that was there was no questions about that money. But when it comes to money, like you're working for two bill, right? When it comes to money, I feel like for women and children, there's a lot of questions. And how are you going to spend it? And where are you going to spend it? And we need a record of it. When it comes to something like that, they just pass it, right? And that's why we need, and I was telling Errol that, I was like, we just need more parks down there. We need more parks. We need more Erica Thomases. We need more Abel Mabels, right? And that's why I like your book, because I'm hoping that more people will read it and we can fill the Capitol with more, you know, reasonable folks, I guess.
I love it, you know, and I'm working every day. You know, I do political consulting as well. So if there are candidates or people that you know in your community who are like, I kind of want to run for office, I always recommend, you know, if you can, and I'm not saying this is necessary because I was not able to do it, but if you're considering it, work on someone else's campaign first. Yeah. See what you like. You know, in the book, I talk about the people that you need to have on your team. And I talk about them as your kitchen cabinet. Right. So I talk about how, how, like, you know, if you go to your kitchen cabinet right now, you open it, you might have some Fritos, you might have some ramen noodles, you might have some cookies, you might have some spices. You have the things that make you feel like, okay, I can do this. I can do the next part of my day. And you really, you know, you want those people on your campaign. And if you can realize that there's always a role for you in a campaign, it also helps you become a better voter, because you can realize, like, hey, they're missing out on this really cool digital strategy. I've never seen this candidate do an IG Live, but I've seen them do, you know, a few IG posts here or there. Well, I've got a student in my office. I would love for them to do an IG Live with that candidate, even if, you know, I can't endorse that candidate or donate to that candidate? Like, how can I be a part of it? So I talk about your seasoned salt, which is your volunteer coordinator. I talk about your cinnamon, which is your speechwriter or your PR person, and your brown sugar as your intern or your volunteer coordinator. The other two that I have are your time, which is your campaign finance manager or your scheduler to keep you on time. And then lastly, on page 32, I have your pepper. This is your campaign manager. They're the ones who are like, I know it's getting spicy. I know it's heating up on the campaign trail, but I'm with you. And sometimes that really helps when you're the candidate and it feels overwhelming.
Right. You can help them. I mean, you even have like stuff to buy in bulk, right? To keep us going, right?
Yeah, like your granola.
Right? Yeah, granola. Yeah. JB had a question. And then Nan had a question. JB's question was, as a first-time prospective candidate, how do you know you're running for the right position?
Yes. And so I decided to run for state representative because I like issues that take a while to fix. Okay. So things like hate crimes, issues that are related to the LGBTQ community.
Closing the jail.
Yeah, things that have to do with HIV, state programs, policing, campaign finance. I really wanted to dig into the long-term issues because I'm a young person. And because I do believe I have years ahead to keep changing the bill, editing the bill. But if you're a person who is like, I'm a go-getter, get it done type, you might want to run for a local position because city council positions, school board positions, county positions even, they're the ones who are like, oh, it's a pothole. Oh, it's a street light out. Oh, the name of the street needs to be changed. Done. And you definitely want to consider how big the district is, where the district lines reach to. You can only run for, districts that you live in. And so, except for Congress in some situations, but you really want to make sure that you have your foot in that community so that when you show up at a neighborhood meeting, they're not like, wait, who are you? They're like, oh yeah, you have been attending our meetings over the years, or I see you have a kid in this school. You're looking for something that you would not be bogged down by doing. And I go as far to say that issues that you would stand on for free. I will protect abortion access if no one ever pays me again in my life.
Yeah.
So,
That was a rough session. That was a rough session, Mark. Oh gosh. All right. So this is my friend Nan. So she wants to know, can you tell us about a constituent you've met who's inspired you to keep fighting and working hard when the going gets tough?
Oh my gosh, there's a million, but I can definitely stand out and think of, this first one. His name is Mr. Sidney Atkins. If you've been around the Capitol, he wears a hat that says the governor. He has like a piece of paper taped to his head. And he is a about 75-year-old gentleman from South Georgia who faced discrimination his whole life, who was jailed, who came to Atlanta, and his whole thing is community engagement. But he never feels like he has the resources. He might show up to a meeting and he has a rolling suitcase always with him, and it's busting with things open. He has his own fold-up chair like Shirley Chisholm that he brings with him everywhere. Perfect. And he'll make an office out of anything. He'll flip over a garbage can and, have his papers spread out. And he literally cuts open magazines and pastes words together to make documents because he cannot type. And so as I started to get to know him, I started to try to bring him into the office to say, hey, you can have office hours with our intern. They can help you with typing. They can help you with some of the things that you're trying to do. And I really had to learn from him. I'm glad that he's still alive and he called me the other day. But I really had to learn from him that people are not asking for you to tell them that they need to do something in a specific format.
Okay.
What they're asking for you to do as a representative is to receive what they have shared to you as truth and as fact, and to represent that in the way that you can do best. So maybe I couldn't have him in all of the meetings about the hate crime bill.
Sure.
But I knew that his critical experience saying that these factual things happened, I needed to bring those to the forefront. So definitely Mr. Sidney.
Mr. Sidney.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's a character. There's another question. This is actually a friend of mine, Meredith. She wants to know, is there a minimum amount you would recommend a candidate raise to have a good chance of taking a seat held by another party?
Definitely. I would definitely say when it's on the state level, you're talking between $40,000 and $80,000. The reason why is not because you are like running a campaign against them. It's because you want to mount a campaign that at least can do a full spread out. So you want to do digital, meaning you want to have every social media platform possible, and you want to pay for ads on that, and you want to have someone who manages it. Because I mean, imagine you're running for office and you're also like holding your camera all the time, and you're like trying to get the best angle, and you're trying to get the ring light up, and you're trying to connect it to the thing. It becomes, you need to be able to pay someone a livable wage to go ahead and take care of that for you. You also want to do direct mail. You want to make sure that as much as people get annoyed at the big glossy mail pieces that come to your house, you want to make sure that you have those, because voters who are not online, they are the top voter. People who have voted for over 40 years in the state of Georgia, they are the number one turnout voters. So you could be doing social media for days, months.
They would never see it.
They would never see it. They need that piece of paper from you. And so in order to segment your voting and who you're reaching out to, you need a big pocket for that. Lastly, what I would say is you need money in so that people are willing to continue donating. I remember I took a training with Emily's List. It's a political action committee, and I know a lot of the action committees that have helped me over the years as a progressive, but I remember them saying to me, early money is like yeast. It makes the dough rise. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And they were like, if your uncle can't donate you $5 or your neighbor is unwilling to give you a piece of their paycheck, why in the world would maybe you feel like you could propel your campaign forward? You need those early donors and early supporters who really give you that boost, so that when you are asking for $1,000 on a cold call, that you feel comfortable saying whether or not you get that money, you know that it is you practicing becoming an elected official. I had to really realize that a lot of it is on the job training, but a lot of that training starts while you're a candidate doing call time for fundraising.
Yeah, it's just a part of it, right? The money. It's just
it is.
I hope I'm saying this person's name correctly. Tosha Ford. She said, if you're planning to run for office, your personal life will be dragged. How do you prepare for that as a potential elected official? And I think she makes a good point. That's why a lot of people are hesitant. But I think with the age of social media, people are getting maybe a little bit more comfortable with having their personal lives out there. But what do you think about that?
I remember when I decided to run for office, I was so concerned that there would be information that others would consider to be negative, that I felt maybe wasn't me in the best light, that they were going to take and run with. And I had to realize that even the things that most people think are positive, those same people will think are negative. So voting rights, me standing up and knocking on the governor's door for voting rights, there are thousands of people who think that I am a bad person for trying to stand up for voting rights. I've had to put both of those ideas about what's going to be negative, internal, external, together and say that I can face it. I am willing to be a transparent elected official and own up to the fact that maybe this one time I had a parking ticket, right? Or maybe another time I was not happy with what someone said to me and I responded to them with the same heat that they gave to me.
Right.
But knowing that as an elected official, you do want people to still be inspired by you and to still see that humanity in you. So apologizing as an elected official is not a bad thing. I wish more elected officials would say, I'm sorry for saying that, or
Right.
I'm sorry for coming to your community meeting, or let me take a step back and listen to you. I talk about learning to lap in this book. Listen, apply, and plan.
Right.
I'm very much this, child of design thinking. This idea that you might have a minimum viable product, this blue pen, and for someone, it's not going to be the best blue pen.
Right.
So you're going to have to, at some point, change the grip on it so that it's softer for people. Or you might change the color, or the company that did your spring, it might no longer be in business. And so there's always the opportunity to ideate and to elevate as an elected official. So I hope that if people are considering doing it, they can always say, I'm not afraid to be accountable and transparent about my lived experiences. However, this is who I am, and this is who I am now. And this is why I'm the right person to represent you. Maybe you have gone through an experience like this. Wouldn't you want someone who actually understands being incarcerated to be over the police?
Right. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, how, people like you that have had these lived experiences, they don't view being, on lower income as a crime. Whereas someone that's not living their authentic selves is going to legislate in such a different way that's not true to their constituents. Lucas Martins has a question, and it says, do you need to be a good speaker to be a representative? And what about some shy folks who are able to do the job and feel uncomfortable in front of the mic?
Oh, I love it. So I do, political interview prep courses. I call them PIP with Park.
Okay.
And I help people get their words out. But ultimately, you don't have to be the best public speaker. And I'll go so far as to say, sometimes it can distance people when they feel like you are always reading from speech.
Yeah, right.
But there, as a Black person in Georgia, my family in South Georgia and Camilla and Albany, they want someone who sounds like them.
Right.
Because they want to know that there's that relatability. Maybe here in Atlanta, they want someone like me, a little bit more cosmopolitan, who's been around the world, who's not afraid to use big terms, and to stand on those facts. But either way, it's so important to just have stories. If you are running for office, you need a story about everything.
Right.
I think a lot of people will remember, in previous governor races, there was a governor, female, Black, who she would tell a story about her brother dealing with addiction. Me, I talk a lot about my family going through domestic violence. We don't do that to pull people's emotions and to tug on people's hearts. We do it because we need people to understand that we are not robots, that we do have suffered pain, and that we want support as we go and do it because we have so many things against us. So I would say just get like a good 5 stories, maybe a story from each generation in your life, each decade in your life, or each career in your life. So you can say something like, when I was in college studying biology, I remember the day that. It needs to be very specific for people to connect to you. Otherwise, people will definitely think that you are misleading them.
Right. And even for someone that's shy, wouldn't you say that that's just them? They could be their authentic selves and still run as a shy person.
Totally.
They're being totally themselves. JB had a question: as a prospective candidate, how do you navigate the concept of you can't please all the people all the time?
I'm happy about that.
Right.
I really
know you are. You're
Yeah,
good.
I mean, I think that it's definitely my father in me, a master sergeant in the Vietnam War, right? Who
Right.
came home from the war and was called a baby killer, right? He was a black man who was drafted, went over there and did the best that he could. And he came home and he was still, facing violence back in Albany, Georgia. If he can go through those things, there are certainly things that I can go through. But what I will say more concretely to this idea is that if you are running for office to please people, to make people feel like you are the best thing since sliced bread, I'm going to argue that that is not fair. Because as much as you running as the candidate for the position can deal with your life, it is about the thousands of people that you represent. So I don't care if they don't want to hear about the 750 people that wrote to me and said, please protect abortion access.
Right.
It matters to those people.
Park, I think we lost your vocals for a
I
minute.
think we lost her for a minute. Let me text
Park,
her.
can you hear us?
Let me text her and just tell her.
Oh, hey.
Hey, I
Oh,
was
okay,
going
you're
to
back.
text you.
You're back.
You didn't hear the last few things you said, Park. Sorry.
All I was
It just
saying
cut
was,
out.
if you are finding yourself misunderstood, though, on the issues that matter to you the most or the issues that you have been reached out to the most, you might just need a new story. You might just need a new way to connect to people. I had to learn that no one cared about, on a certain level, cared about my specific issues with affordable housing. They didn't want to know that it was too difficult for me to afford property taxes in the old Fourth Ward. What they did want to know was the 85-year-old woman who a polling place is named after, Helene Mills, in the old Fourth Ward, who has been aging in place for all of these years, and she cannot afford the property taxes. So I had to kind of shift myself, even though it was my lived experience and it was happening in real time, shift myself out of that position and respectfully request that she speak up. And if she didn't want to, for me to be able to speak up on it. It takes a lot, I would say, to get through that path of being misunderstood, especially if the media is trying to do negative things. But it is very much possible, I believe, with some PIP classes with me, but also if you get deeper into storytelling and really care about community members.
Right. And wouldn't you say you isolate some of the other people that are more your faithful constituents if you don't? So if you were kind of wishy-washy on reproductive health care, right? If you wouldn't have come in and been as firm as you were about that, wouldn't you say you would have lost a lot of people?
Oh, certainly.
Because you would have been trying to satisfy both sides. And I think for you and I and more progressive Democrats, like there's no either or, right? There's nothing in the middle.
Nope.
There's nothing in the middle. I think this is my friend Genesis, who's an OBGYN, and she wants to know what's been your biggest challenge since you've been in office.
I've been working on 2 bills, and they just are getting the runaround. Michelle mentioned one of them. It's now currently called Working for Two, and it is in the Health and Human Services Committee. But it started off as the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act,
right?
The Industry and Labor Committee. Right. And the goal is to make it so that pregnant folks have reasonable accommodations when they are in the workplace. So unfortunately, Georgia has had case after case, major cases like the one UPS versus Young that went all the way to the Supreme Court that talked about what happens when people are pregnant in the workplace. They are outed as pregnant, or otherwise they are found to be pregnant. They start showing, and then all of a sudden they're getting less hours and they're getting these different jobs, and then they're told you can go on leave early and then they get home and they find out it's unpaid leave, and then they have a newborn and they have no income. This issue for me is so important because of the many hospitals like Grady Hospital, Emory, all of the ones that I have in my district, and how many people are birthing on Medicaid who don't have these, maybe high paying jobs where they're given a sabbatical for pregnancy. Instead, they're counting every penny, and
they're saving vacation days.
Yeah,
which is just crazy to me.
They're saving up vacation days for years.
Right.
And so it's been really difficult for me on that issue because the legislature is male dominated, right? And so here, let me take this off.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I want to look at just myself.
Yeah. So, the legislature is male dominated.
Right.
So
it is.
Many of them will proudly say, I'm the father of a la la la, or my kids, or my sons, or my grandkids, my nieces, my nephews. They're so proud to talk about their families. But they would ask me some of the most demoralizing questions when I bring the bill forward. One time, a legislator said to me, so if a woman gets pregnant multiple times, you want her to have these reasonable accommodations every time? Yes.
What?
You want to have multiple kids.
Right.
So clearly you want the benefits of bragging every time.
But that's the same party that doesn't want, you already know all this. They don't want birth control. They don't want you to have reproductive freedom. But then they don't want, they are trying to control women, right? Because if it was about that, they would make other laws, right? You would get child support while you were pregnant. So I don't think they truly believe that it's a life, right? But
no, just pro-birth. And so,
pro-birth.
On that issue, that one has just been really difficult. It's been so emotional. And there are plenty of issues where you can see people over the years get older. But when you see someone who was pregnant, now they have a 4-year-old and they're enrolling them in preschool, and we still have no movement on the issue.
Right.
That one really chokes me up a lot. The second one is police accountability. So we have just been wanting to have a mechanism for if there are officer-involved shootings, that they go into a database. Not to say that they were all bad or they were all good or whatever.
Just documentation.
Basic documentation. We have been told, that would include so many other things. It would include if a bakery at night had their alarm system go off because a bird flew in the window and the officer had to go in order to dislodge or to turn off the alarm system.
The scenarios that they come up with, I'm just like, that's never going to happen. You're imagining something.
Right.
You're up a problem. That's never going to happen, sir.
And so, on that issue, myself, Representative Renita Shannon, who represents in the Decatur area, she and I have been working on this issue for years and years, compiling data, stories. In the meantime, people continue to die and to not get justice. So there are some really emotional issues, I think, that are holding on to me right now, and I'm anchored to. I'm willing to go as long as it takes to get them done.
I don't know how you deal with the hypocrisy there. I know that that's frustrating. It's frustrating for me to watch it. I would imagine it's very frustrating to write a bill that's pro-woman and then have people that just earlier said that they were pro-woman, pro-baby, but then you're not going to support a bill. And you want these women to work. So if they weren't working, you would still be upset. So it's like, I don't know how to make them happy. I don't know how to make them care about women, honestly. I have no idea. Except if people can buy this book and run for office.
Please.
I think that's our solution, Park.
You know what? I just want more people to run for office. I say on the back of it, you can become the leader you were destined to be.
Right.
I really mean it because, like you said, the hypocrisy that is there, sometimes it's not always about changing a policy, getting a governor to sign a bill. It is about getting on record these legislators who have said X, Y, and Z, or putting in a study so that you can get Emory to get enough information about an issue. I still remember talking to a family about an issue that I felt like, I don't know what to do with this. And actually realizing the most important thing I could do was to listen to them, not to like mansplain that it was impossible, but to say, what do you want me to do? I wish that there were more elected officials who didn't feel like we had to come to the table with every single solution. Instead, who were steadfast on finding solutions and just, looking through state resources, connecting people, being of a resource. I think that this book is an opportunity for people to just see that they can do it.
Right. And with the holidays coming up, this would be a great gift to give people, especially if you purchased it from Charis. Bookstore. Because I think, people are talking about there's going to be a supply chain issue, but there's not at Charis. There's plenty of copies available.
Yeah.
But how could you, because people work full-time part, they're tired, they have families, they have kids, but people want to get more involved. And, we have people call legislators, you have people write, but I think people are feeling more energized, like they want to do more and maybe they don't want to run yet. What would you say is something in between that maybe they can do to kind of bridge the gap?
I love it. So I have learned over the years that there are times that I just need to vent to someone who is going to believe my experience and connect me to something that lifts me higher. And so I have always been a dancer. I studied it in college. And when I started running for office, I would go in the office, I'd be so tense, I'd be so tight. I couldn't. And literally the arts community came to the Capitol one day and they were advocating for funding for their programs. And they helped me realize I need to do some Pilates. Your girl needs to go to a dance class, do some salsa, get back into the things that matter to me and then connect those things to politics. So if I'm actually going to a Pilates class and there is an instructor there and she is, halfway working at the Pilates studio, but she's been impacted by COVID, and she's put in an unemployment insurance claim and it's not getting through and she can't get a phone call through. The most impactful thing that I can do as an elected official would be to put in a legislative request on her end. But who is going to do it? My administrative assistant, someone who literally can get yelled at by people on the phone and still say, have a good day. Right. There are opportunities for you to become the kitchen cabinet that I talk about in people's campaigns, but to also do that for elected officials. I really, truly believe that more parents of small children currently right now need to be elected officials because you in real time know how to mediate and soothe, and still be on time, maybe a few minutes late. I'm hopeful that people will also become donors. When you don't make a lot of money, $5 really matters if you're donating it to someone. And it also shows what you're willing to give up. That might be a little bit of gas for you to be able to get to and fro for 3 days, or it might be your martyr card. And so if you decide to run for office, being able to say the sacrifice that you have already made, they really matter to voters. They help people see what you've been through and really humanize the opportunity for them to vote for you. So I was talking with, ER earlier about how since it's virtual world and we're doing this event virtually, I've always called some of this political work political theater. Sometimes you don't really see who people are. You don't really know what they're doing or where they really live or where they really stand. But nowadays, it is so much more political theater. Please dig as deep as you can into candidates before you vote tomorrow. Please hold people accountable. If you vote for someone tomorrow, please follow them on social media.
Yeah.
Look out for their Instagram live notifications. Direct message them and say, I voted for you and I will be watching, or I would like to help you, because there's no better time than now to just stake your claim. I will say that there are people who reached out to me back in March when I was unlawfully arrested. And I was not on my social media for months after that.
Yeah.
But today and yesterday, because I am doing GOTV efforts and I literally go through every single follower, I have 47,000 right now. I go through every single follower every election and I ask them, what is their voting plan?
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing old messages that they had sent to me back in March.
Right.
Even if right now this elected official, this candidate doesn't respond to you, in the future, that accountability that you've already placed will be there. And that is truly what matters.
Yeah. Because I think that that's frustrating for people. And what people are starting to realize is it doesn't end with the ballot box. And I think in the past, a lot of us have said, okay, I voted for you. This is your job. Now I'm going to go off and do my job. And I think we kind of took our foot off the gas. And I think people are starting to get more involved and say, no, I'm going to check in on this person and make sure they're fulfilling their campaign promises. So would you say they should do that by calling, emailing?
I would definitely say in person is really important, even though COVID, there's nothing like a good in-person touch. I'd also say find people in their communities. So what school do their kids go to, and like what baseball games are all at together? Not to be antagonistic, but to literally meet people where they are. Sometimes an elected official is more willing to talk to you about an issue because they've seen you at their kid's baseball game, because they feel like they have been humanized to you. They feel like, okay, maybe, you're not going to retaliate too much. And even if you are going in a way of making people feel accountable and going harder and asking deeper questions and requesting deeper accountability, it can be good for you to just have it on record that you have reached out, that you have put factual information in, that it has been ignored, and you can just actually kind of supersede the elected official. You can take it to the committee that they're on, right? So like, they might be sitting in a committee hearing and you might be able to testify and to say to them, hey, I reached out to you about this. I didn't get a response back. And that's why I showed up today. Sometimes it perks people's ears a little bit differently to see the levels of accountability that you've already gone through.
Right. And it does make them nervous. And I think Rep. Park can attest to this, because I think in 2018, when the abortion bill dropped, they were kind of shocked at the number of people that showed up at the Capitol. That really shook them a lot, because I think they were accustomed to having people come and say, I like this bill. And a lot of people showed up very upset about that bill. And that really shook them up, I think.
Yeah, and they actually changed the policing format after that too. They actually made it so that the officers were in one of the most aggressive policing formations. Because many people showed up to the Capitol, and now today we have an 8-foot fence. Right. So when we go back to the Capitol in 2 days, there will be a big 8-foot fence in between the people and those making decisions on the maps for the next 10 years, which, surprise, Georgia has browned. Our Hispanic population is up 40%. Hispanic, Asian population is up. Black population is up. Surprise that perhaps these districts are literally using gates to keep people out of the conversation. Yep.
And they've changed. I would say, I work also part-time with the DeKalb Democrats, and they've been hitting Tucker hard this week and last week, because Tucker's changed a lot. I hadn't really been over to Tucker in like 20 years. I was like, it's changed a lot. But the problem is the people that serve on city council hasn't changed. So.
Yep.
It's Georgia changing.
Mm-hmm. Right. Georgia is changing. And it's so multi-ethnic that I would love to see someone from brown communities be actually elected, because then we can celebrate different holidays. We can have better tolerance. I mean, we can talk about issues from different ways. You know,
Right.
even in the hate crime conversation, it became very in the media that this was to fix what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. And as much as I agree with that, as a member of the Black Caucus, as a person from South Georgia, as a Black person,
Right.
but this is also about what happens to Muslim people around their religious beliefs. This is what happens to people who speak other languages and might just have an accent when they speak
Right.
English. These hate crimes happen to our children too. And so there's a lot, I think, to unpack. And hopefully when people read this book, they'll be inspired to run for office. They'll reach out to me. I want you to buy it locally at Charis. Please buy it locally.
Please do. They're a great bookstore. And they have great children's books too, because I don't think there's never it's never too early to, I think, educate our kids on what's going on. And Charis also has a great selection of books for children. And Errol has certainly helped me with my child over the years, picking out books for him. And it's really shaped him and helped me, give me the language to talk to him about very difficult subjects.
Absolutely. I thank you for all that you do as a mama in the movement. You continue to show up and to stand out. And I know that it can be difficult to feel like the Capitol is positively changing, but I would not want to be down there with folks, you know, otherwise than you. And like you said, that morning on March 25th, I had seen you. We took a quick selfie.
Yeah.
We were joyful. And so I have very positive experiences because of people like you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I love seeing you down there. Nan says, thanks so much to both of you. She said she's feeling inspired.
Yay!
So what should she do with this inspiration part? What's the first thing Nan should do, you think?
Look at your sample ballot. If you've not voted yet, go
No.
to county registrar and look at your sample ballot, print it out, make some stuff on it. If you've already voted, consider tomorrow putting out a sign around your house or on the street near a polling place that says vote today.
Yeah.
We often forget the small messages. Vote today is the strongest message on election day because people realize that it's the end. People realize it's the deadline. So there's a lot that's an opportunity for tomorrow. But I would say before the end of the year is up, please make sure that you reach out to your elected officials. You should have a minimum of 15 elected officials for you through county, city, state, commissioners, all of these things. Reach out to all of them and just introduce yourself. I know that there have been times that people have introduced themselves to me. They've not asked me for anything. They've just said, oh, I'm a biologist or I do community cleanups. And
Right.
it helps me respond to them and say, oh, I'd love to do a community cleanup. You already have resources. You're a biologist. You already have facts. So it's not necessarily to like reach out and say like, you need to do this thing, person. It's really to just say, this is who I am. Let me know if I could be a resource.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And the poll, I'm working the polls tomorrow. So they are open 7 to 7. You still have time. You got one more day.
Everyone get it done.
Get it done. Yes. Well, I was just going to ask if anyone else had any more questions. I think I don't want to keep you too late. Let's see. No, I don't think so. So you have a couple more talks coming up for your book, and you'll post that to social media for people that couldn't log on maybe tonight, or maybe you want to hear a little bit more because different interviewers, you know, bring up different questions, and that'll let you round out if you want to get a different perspective.
Yep. So
I encourage people to log on next time when you're talking. I think you have a talk tomorrow, right?
I do tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm talking with the one and only Alyssa Milano. You might have known her from Charm, or you might have known her from getting arrested last week at the United States Capitol. But either way, really important to just remember that this book club that I'm starting with this book, it can be small and intimate, or it can be big and online. We would love to be able to just impact your communities in small ways. We really hope that, or who's the boss? Yes.
Yes, who's the boss?
Yes, absolutely. I used to watch that with my mom. And either way, we just want to make sure that people are getting this information in a way that feels good to them. So if you have smaller book clubs that you'd like to invite me to, you can definitely get the book, and my email address is inside, or you can just find me on social media or online, and we can facilitate that for you.
Okay. And then I know a couple college students were on, and a couple of moms of high school kids. So I would just encourage you to check with the library at your child's school. Like, this is at Jackson School. I asked the librarian, and she's like, yeah, sure. It's pretty easy. So let's try to get it in like some of the local colleges. And if your kid is in high school, just go to the librarian and ask, say, hey, can I just put a copy here? And, they'll probably, yeah, right here. It's at his school. So it'd be great to get it in some of the school libraries and get people thinking about running when they're in high school and college.
That's awesome, Michelle. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. I had no clue. We're so much better.
Jackson talked her into it. He asked her, and he had his whole spiel of why it needs to be in the library. And the librarian texted me. She's like, he can have a whole spiel. She said, I was going to say yes. She said, but I just let him go on.
I live for
how he likes.
Yes.
But it'd be great if everybody could just reach out to their local libraries, whether it's at your school or your kid's school, and just ask, can we put this here?
Totally. And I'd love to do signings. I've been enjoying them. My normal signing that you'll see on the inside is keep knocking, and I'll be right there with you.
Yeah.
But we can always customize it. So thank you, Charis, for having me. Thank you, Michelle, for this lovely interview.
Thank you. I enjoyed talking to you. Thank you, Errol.
Thank y'all both so much. That I appreciate that reminder, because so often folks are like, well, how do we get books to folks who can't afford them? The best thing you can do is buy a copy. If you have any expendable income, buy a copy for your library. Just give it to them. Buy a copy for your kids' library, because yes, they do really appreciate it. And it's great to help get the word out. And really, junior high school on up, even upper elementary, I think this would be a great gift. So if you would like to buy this book from Charis, it really does help us when you buy your event books from us. And when you shop locally, you can click this teal button at the bottom center of your screen. And like Michelle said, we have tons of children's books that talk about the political process, that talk about, everything from kids' elections. There's a great book, Grace for President, that's about a young Black girl running for class president and the things that she faces. That's a very popular book. There are tons of books that kind of help kids learn in age-appropriate ways how to get involved in their community and in the political process. So come over to Charis. I will let folks know that this Saturday is our 47th birthday. We didn't get to celebrate with people in person last year, really, in the store. This year we had to be all outside. This year we're going to be inside and outside. Lots of air moving through. Masks are required, but we'll have some goodie bags to take home. And it's always a pleasure to get to celebrate that many years of being in community. And so we hope folks will come by and see us and buy Park's book. And also get a jump on your holiday shopping if you celebrate the winter holidays. Like Michelle mentioned, supply chain is a real thing that we're all dealing with. So the earlier you can get a jump on those things, the better. So we'll all be standing by to help you choose thoughtful holiday gifts and gifts for friends and teachers and loved ones in your lives. So yes, stop by. And finally, I'll be adding captions to this and putting it up on our Charis YouTube channel so that you can share this with more people. So our YouTube is just /Charis Circle. So check that out. It's also got our whole archive of all the events we've been doing during the pandemic. So it's now hundreds of events you can go check out. Many of them are children's events, but we also have a ton of adult events that I think are really fun. So if you want to, turn off Netflix for a night and do a little deep dive, it's a really fun way to get caught up. So thank you both so much. This was a really inspiring conversation. I see lots of folks getting excited in the chat about their next steps. So everybody go vote tomorrow, maybe take someone else to the polls, and you know,
Get your
stay
free
involved.
sticker. I'll be there to give you a free sticker.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody have a great night. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you, Errol. Thank you,
Bye.
Park.